Según las investigaciones científicas, Otzi es la momia de un hombre que falleció hacia el año 3255 antes de nuestra era y quien murió aproximadamente a los 46 años de edad. La momia fue descubierta el 19 de septiembre de 1991 por dos alpinistas alemanes en los Alpes de Otzal, en la frontera de Austria e Italia a una altitud de 3.200 metros sobre el nivel del mar.
There was a flint arrowhead lodged in Otzi's left shoulder. Soon enough, on Otzi's hand showed initial signs of healing and must have occurred just which indicated that Otzi was attacked with a sharp blade but fought back and survived. Otzi may have dressed the wound About 33 hours before his death, Otzi was at an altitude of around 2,000 500 meters, near the timberline. Then, Otzi reached an altitude of around 3,000 meters, where grasses, sedges, and certain wildflowers dominated. Apparent efforts to escape the conflict, someone at a distant vantage shot him from behind. The arrow pierced a major artery and embedded itself in or explore more secrets preserved by permafrost, including
casualty of the mountains. A body lay partially protruding from the melting glacial ice in the Ötztal Alps that this was no recent tragedy. The hikers had discovered the perfectly preserved remains of a man who had died over 50 centuries. Years old, about 1.60 meters or 5 feet 3 inches tall, with perhaps eaten for medicinal reasons or wrapped around food. Technology and craftsmanship. He wore leggings made of domesticated goat leather, a loincloth of sheep leather, a coat woven from strips of goat and sheepskin, a cap made of bearskin, an intricate item. He also carried a flint-bladed dagger with an ash wood handle and a woven grass. The direct cause of death, they paint a picture of a man who, despite prevailing theory centered on violence, researchers examined his body with unprecedented detail using various methods. Perhaps a chase, a conflict, an ambush. The idea was that the arrow had club or a blunt object during an altercation, either preceding or following the arrow attack. It seemed plausible. Perhaps making it difficult to use his left arm or move quickly. This amount of blood loss is not typically considered rapidly fatal. It was a serious injury, undoubtedly, but perhaps not the smoking gun previously believed. Then there are the head injuries. The new high-resolution imaging allowed researchers to look at the skull trauma from a different perspective. Researchers concluded that the depressions and fractures on Ötzi's head were more consistent with not a targeted, forceful blow from another person, but with an accidental fall. When traversing steep, rocky, uneven alpine terrain, a fall is a very real risk. Ötzi was found with remnants of fur headgear, which, while perhaps not offering total protection, could have potentially cushioned the impact of a headlong tumble, resulting in injuries that were significant but not immediately life-ending. Like the arrow wound, a bad fall could certainly have incapacitated him, leaving him vulnerable. So, if the arrow wound wasn't directly fatal and the head injury was likely accidental, what ultimately killed Ötzi? Researchers arrived at a stark, yet perhaps more plausible conclusion given the environment. Ötzi and restricted movement in his shoulder, possibly dazed or injured from a fall, he found himself high on the mountain pass as weather conditions like it brings confusion, lethargy, loss of coordination, and eventually unconsciousness and death.
from woven grass, a leather loincloth and shoes, as well as same arrow that pierced his shoulder. Some of the blood on his clothes may have belonged to an ally that he tried to carry found, but evidence suggests that he may have been carried up the mountains and periodically moved with the seasons.
Here on the screen. That's the exact location where the body was discovered. It's almost at the border between Italy and Austria in the Ötztal Alps. This is a mountainous region. It is generally high altitudes and high elevations, high peaks with an alpine climate. We can make 3 observations. Observation number 1 is the altitude. You can see here that he was found very close to the highest peaks here and along a ridge between 2 peaks. That means that he must have climbed with all his heavy gear at least 2,000 meters up the mountains. Observation number 2 is that there are 2 ways here, the North Valley and the South Valley, down to this lake here. So he probably came either from the North Valley or from the South Valley. There is one possibility that he came along this ridge where he was found. You can see the ridge here. But on each side the ridge ends on high peaks with very steep slopes, so that's not very probable. Observation number 3 are the steep slopes on each side of this ridge. You can see especially the southern slope is very, very steep, and also the northern slope.
In contrast to copper, which is more malleable and is far more likely to bend than to break with a little hammering, a bent copper tool could be melted down and recast into something. Producing a stone blade or a polished axe was a very labor-intensive process that required a great deal of patience and skill, and many hours of chipping or grinding that could potentially end in disaster during manufacture or use. Less people were specializing in the production and trade of stone jewels as copper tools spread throughout the Near East, which led to a decline in both the amount and quality of stone tools at cooperage sites since copper tools were more effective. At the same time as copper began to become widely used, it allowed more people to specialize in other fields. The potter's wheel, which reduced the amount of time it took to produce pottery, and irrigation were 2 more significant developments. Before irrigation,